Kamba komedia boys meso abo anogara akafurika nzeve dzavo dzinogara dzakafurika zvese connected musharukwa kamba kwevanogaya mari meso abo anogara akafurika nzeve dzavo dzinogara dzakafurika zvese connected musharukwa kamba kwevanogaya mari ndakubvunza mamuona here kamba vachitaura
Right, 27 September 2023, and today I am going to give you a brief update on the dialogue between ZANU-PF and the CCC, and I was supposed to be joined by Dr. Fedias Mteneri, so we had a bit of a clash here because I was broadcasting the Chris Maroleng interview or testimony in front of the US Parliament. I think he was speaking there before about the South African relationship with the United States of America, and things appear to be going very well for the South Africans. They're doing well there. There was Reddy Chabi and Chris Maroleng. It seems like the United States is not going to suspend AGOA. From what I can see, the reaction has been very, very good. The South African rand appreciated significantly when Chris Maroleng was speaking. I think it went quite very, very well. If you were trading the rand, you did very, very well right now in the past hour. So I want to speak about the dialogue. So remember I told you, the dialogue between ZANU-PF and the CCC, it's definitely coming, and there is eventually going to be a GNU between Nelson Chamisa and President Mnangagwa. The situation in Zimbabwe is desperately impossible. You cannot sustain what's happening right now in Zimbabwe, and some cool heads are needed to diffuse the tension that is in Zimbabwe and to get the wheels turning again. There is nothing happening in Zimbabwe right now, and I really think Nelson Chamisa is doing a great job. He's been very, very calm since the elections, and he needs support. Nelson Chamisa needs support. I'm going to talk more about this on Saturday. The people around Nelson Chamisa, some of them are not there. They're not there yet. And I wish I could tell you more about what is happening behind the scenes. But when you see me talking here, I'm telling you things that I know. I'm not telling you things that I heard or things that I read in a book. I'm telling you things that I know that are happening right now on the ground. Chamisa needs to sort out the people around him. Otherwise, it will not end well for the CCC right now. There is a desperate need for dialogue. People are going through untold suffering in Zimbabwe. And I want to now look at what is going to happen, and let's look at the reaction by Promise Mkwananzi. Promise Mkwananzi has given a statement on dialogue, and I'm going to read through that statement. And Ostalos has also given a statement on dialogue. The CCC have spoken about dialogue in public. So let's start with Promise Mkwananzi, and he's specifically responding to Father Mkonori. I think that's how they wrote it here. I don't know if that's the correct name, but he is a very influential person. I think a Catholic or Anglican bishop, and he is the one who led the negotiations between President Mugabe and Morgan Tsvangirai. So he spoke to Trevor Ncube this weekend, and I'm going to unpack that on Saturday. But let's see the response from Promise Mkwananzi, and then I'll give you my thoughts about what the CCC is doing here. And I hope that Dr. Mteneri joins us here. I'm not seeing him, but I'm sure he's somewhere in the studio. My studio is crazy right now. Let me see if he's in one of my studios, because I've got quite a number here and they're all crazy today. Right, I don't see it. So let us read the statement that was done by Promise Mkwananzi here. Mkwananzi says, noting the statement from Father Mkonori, it is essential to put things into perspective before responding to his call. While Father Mkonori has for years been a respectable figure of the church in Zimbabwe, his conspicuous role in the events that led to the deposing of President Mugabe through a coup by Mr. Mnangagwa diminished his societal standing and respect he enjoyed. His skilled analysis in today's Herald newspaper further affirmed the question which Zimbabweans have about the relationship Father Mkonori has with Mnangagwa regime. Father Mkonori ought to extricate himself from his partisan position if he is to retain the respect which he commanded over the years. At the very least, the electoral sham of August 2023 did not pass the test for an election. In other words, the events of 23 and 24 August 2023 cannot be a basis for Father Mkonori to talk about winners and losers. This is the position commonly held by all observer missions that observe the elections. In short, if ever there would be a dialogue in Zimbabwe, it will not take place on the basis of winner and the loser, but on the basis of two Zimbabwe's political leaders, namely President Nelson Chamisa and Mr. Mnangagwa. Their dialogue would need to take place outside the purview of the ill-fated and illegal Pollard framework, a feeding trough for fringe political leaders who only care about their stomachs and the benefits extended to them by Mr. Mnangagwa to undermine the leading party in Zimbabwe, the CCC Zimbabwe. Accordingly, a genuine bilateral framework for dialogue will need to be facilitated between the two political leaders. In addition, the dialogue must include several other key stakeholders, such as the church, civic society, business, women, youths, informal traders, etc. The dialogue must be underwritten by SADC from the outset and be confined to only one objective: to establish a transitional authority whose sole purpose would be to deal with all issues that hinder a free and fair election in Zimbabwe, such as disbanding of ZAC, political media reforms, etc., and the conducting of a fresh, free, and fair election within the shortest possible time to save Zimbabwe and indeed the region, which may suffer from most of the spillover effects of Zimbabwe's incessant electoral disputes. Fresh election Zimbabwe. So if you go to gambako.com, you are going to see this story. CCC responds to Father Mkonori's call for dialogue. So this is what Promise Mkwananzi said today. And if you go on the YouTube channel of Gambako Media, you'll see that one of our news readers has covered that story today about what Ostalos said about the dialogue. So Ostalos said the sham election of 2023 cannot be the basis for calling for a dialogue, but they all respect that there must be dialogue between ZANU-PF and the CCC. Remember to take my words as my words. And then you must go and look at what the actual person said. So if you look at what Father Mkonori said, and I don't know, this name doesn't sound right to me. So let's check here what he actually is called, because I don't know if these guys are spelling this name correctly on my channel here. And I just came out of another shoot, so I'm a bit unprepared today because of, yes, that is correct. Father Fidelis Mkonori, that is his name. So I don't think Promise Mkwananzi watched the whole 1 hour, 13 minutes interview. And he probably read the story in the newspaper. You must understand the Herald. The Herald journalists write the story. Then they take the story to George Charamba, and he puts a lot of salt and pepper on it. So when you read the story in the Herald, George Charamba has put salt and pepper on it. It's not the real thing. So if you listen to what Father Fidelis Mkonori said, he didn't say what George Charamba in the Herald said. The stories are different. Father Mkonori, very, very smart man. You should watch that interview. It's called Father Fidelis Mkonori, Religious Leader And I think let's open here. If we go to Trevor's channel, Trevor Ngube, it's Father Fidelis Mkonori, religious leader and national peacemaker, in conversation with Trevor. He did not say there's losers and winners. He said Chamisa and President Mnangagwa are lawyers. And it will be very hard, it will be important to take two of them and lock them in a room and tell them you won't come out until you get a solution. I love that guy. He says very, very interesting things. So it's not that thing that you see in the Herald. And I think what I like about what Promise is saying is that they agree that there must be dialogue. There's no way out of what's happening now in Zimbabwe. And I personally know that if you try to involve outsiders, people from outside Zimbabwe in this dialogue, it will fail. You must listen to what Father Konori said, and I'm going to unpack it on Saturday. There's some very, very important things that need to happen in Zimbabwe. One of them is that President Mnangagwa and Nelson Chamisa, they will eventually have to talk one-on-one. And then after they talk one-on-one, at the back, behind the scenes, some other things need to happen with the teams. So Father Mkonori explained the issue of teams. Who was in a team? The problem that we have right now, on Nelson Chamisa's side, there is no team. The guys who are around Chamisa right now, they are not the same guys that were around Tsvangirai. So the depth that we have around Chamisa is not the same depth that we had during the time of Tsvangirai. You can see that I'm a bit cross with Chamisa right now. There's a reason, and I won't tell you. So the thing is, ZANU-PF has a lot of depth. There's a lot of people on the side of ZANU-PF who can match the guys on Chamisa's side. But there are a lot of praise singers who are going to tell Chamisa that you can do this without, we just said that President Mnangagwa will step down and then you will become president. And when you go to dialogue, you'll be equal. So these things are not true. You cannot do it that way. And that is where I want to unpack where we are now. Where we are now, ZANU-PF can simply walk away and do nothing. And you Zimbabwean guys, myself and you and everyone else, will continue to suffer. And if you try anything, they'll just take out the army, they'll take out the police, and they'll crush us. But what I know about President Mnangagwa is President Mnangagwa likes to negotiate. I always tell guys this. If you do not know a president that likes to negotiate, it's President Mnangagwa. President Mnangagwa does not like to force things. That's why I told you his biggest problem is he can't fire anyone. He likes to sit back and let a situation develop. So listen very, very carefully to what I'm saying. Whereas Chamisa, on his side, he's got a lot of supporters. And sometimes they tend to crush him. So the supporters tend to crush Chamisa in such a way that eventually he has to think before he acts, to say, what do I do now? What is going to happen to my people? Because they are very young and energetic. And that is what Father Mkonori was saying, that these dialogues need to happen in private and in secret. They cannot be done in the face of the public. And if you can see the responses that we're getting them from Kwananzi, we're getting them from Ostalos. All of them, very, very young guys, very, very nice guys. But I think Chamisa needs to put a rein on it. You've not heard President Mnangagwa speaking about dialogue. So this talk of dialogue from the CCC in the public, they must cut it, because right now they've exposed that they want to do dialogue. No one should know that there's dialogue. The day when dialogue starts, there should be no one who knows that there's dialogue, including the guys from outside the country. Because my feeling is that the guys from outside Zimbabwe, they do not want this situation to be resolved. You will not see anybody from outside the country. Looking at the guys I've talked to, there will be a great disappointment if dialogue was to happen and this situation was to be resolved. So what I would say to President Mnangagwa is he must put a lot of effort in making this dialogue work. Make sure that the CCC get the respect that they deserve. make sure that Chamisa gets most of what he wants, what he demands. It's not much. And then things can move forward. The sticking point is going to be this National Transitional Authority. I can assure you that the National Transitional Authority won't work. What is going to work is some power sharing arrangement. And then SADC will come in and do the reforms. So that reforms must be underwritten by SADC, and the roadmap must be underwritten by SADC. The problem is, previously there was no roadmap. When Tsvangirai went into government with Mugabe, there was no roadmap. But this time around, there must be a roadmap. So you cannot have weak people negotiating for Chamisa. At the moment, we have very, very weak people trying to get into the place of Nelson Chamisa. They do not understand what groundwork needs to be done. And what I can say to the young guys is that they need to understand that they're not dealing with weak people. ZANU-PF is not weak at all. And I always want to say this, the things you say at a rally and the things that happen in real life, there's a diagrammatical difference. It's very, very different. You have to understand that to get into office, it means you are removing a system and replacing it with your system. If you don't have a system, if I say count for me 1,000 people from Chamisa's party who are leaders, you should not hesitate to count those 1,000 people. Right now, I struggle to count 100 quality people from Chamisa's side. We need quality. And Chamisa needs to build that right now. He cannot do what these guys are doing now, which is to think that someone is going to come from outside the country and run the thing for them. No one is going to come. They have to do it. They have to strengthen the CCC. Because whenever I sit with ZANU-PF guys, and there is no one there, there is no President Mnangagwa, there's no one. There is always someone there with enough capacity. Everywhere where I go, where there's ZANU-PF as a group, there's at least 1 millionaire there. And I'm not lying to you. This is a fact. When I go to South Africa and I enter a gathering of ZANU-PF to do an interview or whatever, I see guys who can make things happen. People who are going to be MPs, people who are sponsoring 100 balls. Those are the kind of things that you see. People who got capacity, who can make decisions without having to resort to calling President Mnangagwa. Whereas when I go to Chamisa's side, it's obviously always the difference. There's some certain lack of capacity that I'm starting to see, which Chamisa needs to address. They need to build capacity. And you may take what I'm saying now one way or the other. But eventually, when Chamisa goes to that negotiating table, this is going to come out. You're going to see what I'm talking about. You cannot negotiate with a lion without a weapon. And this is exactly what Nelson Chamisa right now is on the verge of doing. He's on the verge of making one of the biggest mistakes by not taking this dialogue seriously. It's coming. There is no way the dialogue is coming. And it needs to be handled at a proper level, not at the wrong level. Right, let me answer the questions. And I want to make sure that we address issues here. We are entering a critical period, and I'm going to be here every day. As I said to you, we are not going to leave you without information. And the information that I have is correct. I am inside that information. I'm not telling you things that I heard from someone. Love Momo says you're no longer a reporter, but a CC reporter. I'm not a CC reporter. I'm not a reporter. I'm a media company owner. 10 years since I started Gambaku Media. And I've been there every day, before, after, and during the elections. Right? Fresh elections, your turn. It don't happen. Let me tell you what. The Zimbabwean political landscape is wrong. Everything's wrong in Zimbabwe about politics. The electoral laws are wrong. The ZEC is wrong. The violence, the media, everything's totally wrong. So what you need to do is to fix the system That is why fresh elections can't happen now. That is why you hear Chamisa saying he wants a national transitional authority. He wants the system to be fixed. So fresh elections, that is something for the rally. It's not reality. Right, Sadak Troika. Sadak Troika was a virtual meeting between Tanzania, Zambia, and I think it's Namibia. It was not the meeting where ZANU-PF presented and CCC presented. So nothing of that sort happened. The people who observed the elections did not present. The people who are going to recommend what needs to happen in Zimbabwe were not there. So this is a very high-level meeting which covered a lot of other things. There will be a proper meeting, but do not hold your breath. This is not where your solution is. Your solution is in Zimbabwe. Your solution is local. So the dialogue that led to Tsvangirai becoming prime minister was not underwritten by outsiders. It was done by Zimbabweans. So the CCC guys need to understand that you need to make your side strong so that when you go to ZANU-PF, you go with a set of demands, you get what you demand, and you enforce what you demand. Not what they did last time, that once they get into government, they get a fresh new car, they get a house, and 5 years later, they wake up and find out that there's no reforms. Some of the guys right now who are in CCC, they don't have even a blanket, but they were ministers in the GNU because they do not understand the speed of time. Time moves very, very fast. That's why I always tell you, people are suffering. And this is not the time to play games. And people are playing games with the lives of people. People need to take this very, very seriously. The election ended and there's a dispute, but the dispute cannot be resolved outside of dialogue. You have to sit across the table to talk. And you must not be afraid of ZANU-PF. Right now, CCC is terrified of ZANU-PF. That's why they do not want to engage ZANU-PF. You need to confront ZANU-PF. You need to make sure ZANU-PF gives you what you want. And you need to do it face to face. So for the first time, Chamisa has to face President Mnangagwa and make his demands in front of President Mnangagwa, not away from President Mnangagwa. Because you can't take over from government from over there. You have to be here in the room. Then you take over from President Mnangagwa. Right, let's go to, I want to look at a comment here, which is something that I haven't covered. I'm seeing some insults on Father Mkonori here. I don't know what that's about. Right, the last comment is Baba Mkudze. Baba Mkudze, I hope you're doing well. And if Chamisa needs dialogue, he must go for himself, because as a citizens, we learned what happened before. Nothing to offer after GNU. We need free and fair elections. I've answered this already. Chamisa will never take over in Zimbabwe without dialogue. I think CCC guys understand this. If Chamisa wants to take over in Zimbabwe, he has to sit across the table. He has to allay the fears of ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF guys are afraid of what will happen if they are removed and they don't have any assurances. If you remove ZANU-PF guys now, who is to say some crazy person in CCC is going to say we're going to arrest all of them, we're going to take everything they own? These are the things that you need to negotiate and deal with in a GNU. And many people have said this before. Where have you ever seen an election in Zimbabwe which ended well? Chamisa is inheriting a problem that has been there since 1980. After the 1980 the election, there was Gukurahundi. Further, every year there was complaints of rigging. People were shot. People like Kombai in Guero were shot. Their legs were shot off during elections. Take care. You know what happened to Take Care. Margaret Dongo. Going all the way to Tsvangirai. Every election in Zimbabwe has had drama where things didn't end well for the opposition. There is a cultural problem in Zimbabwe. It's not something that began with Chamisa. Every single election that we've held in Zimbabwe, there's been complaints. Foreigners have been asked to come and intervene because your system is broken. And the Zimbabwean culture is broken. The Zimbabwean political culture and the Zimbabwean culture itself is broken. If you look at Zimbabweans right now, who are in the CCC, every single one of them, they'll jump ship if you give them a Range Rover and tell them to come to ZANU-PF. Similarly, guys in ZANU-PF, they will jump ship so fast when President Mnangagwa took over. And now they're sitting well with President Mnangagwa, but they would, with President Mugabe, people like Joy Charamba, they were sitting there writing speeches to fire ED. These are the kind of things that I'm telling you about. It's Zimbabwe political culture and the culture of our people is broken. That is why you need a period where things are going to be addressed. And the young guys, I don't understand how much time is moving. And our people are suffering every single day because of this poor leadership that we have. Not poor leadership from ZANU-PF alone, but poor leadership because as a people, we just don't have a direction. What exactly do you want as a Zimbabwean? What is the national vision? It's lacking. And that national vision is that what we need to deal with. You sound afraid of ZANU-PF. You saw what happened to that doctor who said the soldiers are not doing a good job and they send him to the front line. George Mdambe, I want you to come here and I'll put you in front of this camera. I'm not afraid of ZANU-PF. I go to Zimbabwe after I say what I'm saying here. And I sleep well in Zimbabwe. I walk around. My friends in ZANU-PF, I talk to them. I'm not afraid of ZANU-PF. I'm not Simbachi Kanza, who just talks from UK every day, talking nonsense. So that's what I'm saying to you. This is the real deal, what I'm telling you about here. I'm not talking about things that are... Okay, I apologize to Simba for that. Okay, let's go to one more comment. I can't end with that. That's true. I also don't see any other strong men around Chamisa. It's like CCC is only made of Chamisa alone. Whenever I talk about CCC, it has to be Chamisa. Yeah, I think this is a topic for another day. I wish I could sit down with you guys and unpack what Chamisa does not understand. And I want to take you back to one story. Morgan Tsvangirai, just before he died. And nobody, people were fleeing from Morgan Tsvangirai. I was in Joburg and I got a call from Tino Mambeo. So there were very few guys who stood by Tsvangirai on his very last days. And Tino Mambeo was sitting with Tsvangirai in, I think it was in Braamfontein, and he was saying to me, Gambakwe, Tsvangirai needs an interview. At that time, no one wanted to interview Tsvangirai. He was just like an ordinary person now. Can you come and interview him? So I drove to Johannesburg. So I always tell you guys, the things I'm telling you, I'm not hearing them from a book. I'm telling you things that happened. I drove to Johannesburg, but then I won't tell you what happened after. But all I can tell you is that it got to that point where people like Tino had to arrange interviews. So they had to phone people to say, can you come and do this? Can you come and do that? Chamisa has to understand that he's got a lot of power right now. And he's got a lot of influence. He's got an opportunity to change our country. But there will come a time when the very people around him are going to turn their backs on him. The whole Zimbabwe will love Chamisa, but the whole people around him are going to turn their backs on him if he does not address this national question. The national question we have now is, how do we get our people out of this problem that they have? The crashing dollar, the lack of jobs, the crashing hospitals that don't work, and everything around Zimbabwe. You can see it has collapsed. And Chamisa is there. He's the person that can solve this thing together with President Mnangagwa. President Mnangagwa is standing there waiting for these guys to see. And Chamisa is standing there waiting for President Mnangagwa to see. and all of them are just standing there. They have to understand that it's not normal to spend 10 years saying, I don't like this election, let's do another one. And then you spend the 10 years, let's do another one. You see, those kind of things that are happening in Zimbabwe are abnormal. Tsvangirai died before there was a result on his court case. That is how bad this thing is. These elections are not bringing anything to our country. They're just a waste of time. You have to start from scratch. And when you start from scratch, you then deal with the issues. But you cannot be out of the system. You have to be part of the system. A soldier must not be afraid to talk to Chamisa. If he's a prime minister or if he's in the government, a soldier can walk up to Chamisa and talk to him. But now they can't talk to him. They're scared because they are doing something illegal. Issues of sanctions cannot be dealt with before you address the issues of Chamisa and give him the right ministries so that he gets the respect that he deserves when he goes, he speaks for the government of Zimbabwe. This is what we need. And as I said, I can keep on going with this thing, but I think let's wrap this up. Dialogue is coming. The CCC is ready. But I think as Hanji Westbanda here says, Chamisa is not the president. Ask Idi that question, Gamba. Obviously, President Mnangagwa has to make the platform here. I always say to the guys, the first move must be made by President Mnangagwa. President Mnangagwa must say, guys, let's solve the problem in this country. Here's the platform. And then people talk. But the CCC guys have to structure themselves. They have to have a formidable team which can negotiate and go into President Mnangagwa's office and with a list of demands. Get a proper mediator, make demands and get those demands. But don't make those demands from nowhere. It's not going to work. Right. This was a very, very quick and impromptu discussion of the GNU issues. We're going to be back tomorrow. And I think we'll discuss other issues. Then Saturday, I'll be back here and we'll look at the actual steps that Father Mkonori took to shepherd the dialogue between President Mugabe and Morgan Tsvangirai. And then let's talk about that. And also let's look at the Troika on Sunday. I want us to go into the detail of the statement. If the statement is interesting, tomorrow we'll bring it up here. I'll ask Dr. Fedias Mtenere to come through. Dr. Fedias Mtenere has been traveling around, working on some documents. So he's not been able to come here. He's been up and down between two different countries. So this is what it is. Promise Mkwananzi and Ostalos, they've talked about the dialogue. You can go to gambako.com, you'll find the information there. The full statement from Promise Mkwananzi. They say they want the dialogue, but under certain conditions, such as SADC, such as the NTA, and so forth. That is what they want. And this is what I've been saying here. It's almost impossible to get that. When you go into dialogue, you don't dialogue to say, Mnangagwa, get out of office. I think we have to dissuade the guys from CCC from starting there. That is a mistake. They will not get it. What they need to do is to take this as a serious process and work on solid demands. What I would do if I was Chamisa, I want reforms, electoral reforms. I want media reforms. I want economic reforms. I want to be in charge of the Reserve Bank. I want to be in charge of the Minister of Finance. I want to be in charge of the Minister of Defense, Minister of Home Affairs. I want to be in charge of Minister of Foreign Affairs. But now we're talking. These are the kind of things that Chamisa should be saying. I want to be a prime minister with power. I want to be able to take charge of the Minister of Local Government. You know, those kind of things. They are real things that can happen. And President Mnangagwa will then have to say yes or no. And if he says no, he knows what will happen. It will be collapse after collapse. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, not these things that are in the air that will never land. So let's see what happens. And as I said, tomorrow, as soon as we get the statement from SADC Troika, I'm going to go live here and we'll talk about it. We're going to be on top of this situation until everything is clear. But GNU is coming, dialogue is coming, no matter what conditions. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And let's talk again tomorrow night.
Kuno aho bano mama wanna get it night I know pura meso I know pura nzebe